Should we try that again? Just tried to go live and it didn't work. But I've just changed the Wi-Fi connection. Okay, it is Wednesday. I had no idea what day it was yesterday. Hi Zoe, I had no idea what day it was. I knew I was going to do the feature wall in the bedroom, but you know, it could have been Tuesday, Wednesday. It's all Blur's Day. Blur's Day, that's what it is, isn't it now? And in fact, I just felt a drop of rain, which is why I'm up a ladder. So, we were going to have a bit of a chat about feature walls inside today, but I've become waylaid, and I'll show you why. This is live, you see? This is live action. Hang on. Hey, somebody's not going up a ladder anymore. Hi, Dave. Dave just joined in.
Hi, pal.
Hi, pal. So I was going to paint this, paint the outside of the garage barge boards in aluminium paint, but we have a problem. There's some little bits that need filling. So so that's just taken me a bit more time. We've had a look at the one on the far side, and I'm just getting around to this one today. Health and safety, Dave. Health and safety doesn't apply. So basically, I need to do some work on this before I paint it. So what that means is it's a very little ladder as well. What that means is things have changed a little bit in terms of what we're going to talk about, because we've just got a bit waylaid outside. But you know what? This is how things roll here. So what we're actually going to talk about, hang on, I'm kind of back where we were the other day when Mr. Rogers was here. And are you going to join in? Well, mind you, we're talking about kind of Wednesday. Whoop! Let's get my... hang on. We're talking about Wednesday Wow interior type stuff now, aren't we? So you don't really join in with that kind of thing, do you? Wallpaper. Oh, Anita's saying when to fill and when to replace. I will do that actually. I get quite a few messages on filling stuff, whether it's inside or out, skirting boards and holes and walls and all sorts. So yes, I will do one actually, and I'll get some materials out one day. We'll do one of those. Have a paintbrush out in my pocket. But actually, what I thought we'd talk about today, because we've said that we're going to talk about Wednesday Wow, so it's going to be interior design decisions, paint, wallpaper. It's going to be red threads and hero products and how to make decisions. So actually, seeing how we're outside, I thought we'd have a little chat about how to make these big decisions on stuff, and how one item, whether it's inside the house or in the garden, can influence everything else and start to create a red thread. So those of you who've seen lives before, blog posts before, and I've talked about the red thread. There's quite a few, if you Google it, actually. Red threads are the threads which interior designers and designers use to run through their schemes, and they can be anything from colour, texture, a particular material, an era in time, the 20s. So if you take an idea and you run with it through your design, it's the way to make a scheme feel cohesive, and it's a way to make your interior design, your exterior design, your garden design, your room design, your kitchen, whatever, feel cohesive. So you replicate and run with that thread through the house. So say, for example, you may have a particular affinity for the colour yellow, okay? But you're not gonna paint your entire house yellow unless you're a complete lunatic. And please nobody put on here that they've painted their whole house yellow. But what you will do is, for example, out in the garden, you might plant lots of yellow flowers. In the kitchen, you may use yellow as your accessories, or you may use yellow as a paint colour. You may have a feature wall in some wallpaper, which is yellow. Through the house, you will have that thread running. And that basically is a red thread. So I'm going to show you a couple of the ones. I'm going to show you one, actually, that we have running through the garden outside here. And also talk about how it came about and how it's helped as well. Because the one thing, when you're doing a renovation or a house design, or house rethink, whatever, the one thing that a lot of people really struggle with is making decisions, and making big decisions on expensive products. They either leave it to the last minute and then rush into it and buy something in the sale, or something they don't really like, or something that's too expensive, or they leave it to the builder to decide. Terrible decision. Or yeah, they really struggle with making those big decisions. And if you have decided on those red threads that are going to run through your scheme, they will help you to make decisions. So I'll show you exactly what I mean and how doing that's actually helped me here and helped me make some really expensive decisions, and also helped those decisions to be the right ones, because big decisions are expensive decisions as well when you're renovating, aren't they? This stuff, I mean, buying, terrace, we've got some porcelain tiles on the terrace here, that sort of stuff, you're talking like 40-50 quid a metre for external grade porcelain planks if you're going to do an outside job. That's expensive. You don't want to make a mistake, do you, and decide something wrong. So let me show you how we carried through one of the red threads here. Okay, so the roof, just one sec. Hang on, one second. What? Oh, go on then. There we go. Easily distracted. So, if you have a little look at the slate roof, the slates on the original house, so on the original Edwardian house, were in this beautiful pattern, okay? And what we decided to do was to replicate the roof on, when we did the demolition, we replicated the roof on the rebuild and on the garage. So you've got these beautiful slates. And because we didn't have enough slates from the knockdown, we saved them all. But because we didn't have enough, we had to buy some more. What ended up happening was we've got a kind of very dappled effect on the greys. So it wasn't something that was a deliberate choice. It was something that just happened, but it was something that was unavoidable. So this dappled grey, where we'd mixed in the different slates from the different place, the different reclamation yards, became apparent as we built the roof and as I nailed on all of these slates. But actually, I really liked it. So as I looked at it, and I really loved the dappled effect, it began to then inform decisions that I was making around the garden. So one of the big decisions was what to do with the bifolds. So we had, you're making big decisions like bifolds and windows, and you think, oh my God, what bloody colour am I going to do them in? And what you need to do is to look around at other things that are going on in your neighbourhood, on your property, in your garden, in your house maybe, and start to think about how the things that are going on around will inform the decision that you make. So when I looked at the dappled greys of the roof up there, I kind of thought it's got to be grey. Now at the minute, I've got a lot of black in the house, got a lot of black and white, so it was one of those things of, do we have black and white outside? But actually black is quite stark and it's quite harsh. So I decided that, coupled with the fact that the dark greys are, they're quite sort of contemporary at the minute, aren't they? And I think that will have longevity. I don't think that's going to go particularly out of fashion for a long time. I think it has... There's a reason why Farrow and Ball have got a colour called railings. It's a classic, and railings and downpipe, they're classic external greys. And this is not, it's not just an on-trend thing. So I decided that I was going to use the grey on the bifolds to marry in with the grey on the roof. And what started to happen then, as I was making other decisions around the house, and this will happen with you as well, or as I was making other decisions around the garden, the fact that we've got this as the start of our red thread, which was then sort of starting to tie into what was going on in the garden, I then extended that red thread through to other decisions. So I'll turn you around and I'll show you what I mean. Hello, Rockstar. There's always one around, isn't there? As we looked up on the roof of the garage, and then we did the patio outside what will be the kitchen, I had to decide what flooring to put down on here. So, Rocky, quite distracting, darling. Okay. So I just need to find another place to sit. I don't want to be in the video. How many tiles and porcelain planks and patio finishes are there out there? There are thousands. I mean, literally. And increasingly, as we're looking, porcelain planks are getting so much more popular, porcelain tiles, and this sort of timber effect particularly. There's just a shed load of them out there. How do you make that decision? How do you decide what to spend your money on? Well, I looked at the roof and it became immediately apparent with my roof what I needed to do was to have some kind of dappled grey effect. Now, It may be that in your house, if you were doing this, you had a completely different type of clay or slate or tile on the roof, and you might think that another colour, different colour, would pick up what's going on. You might live in the Cotswolds and you might have completely different colour bricks, and you might start to think, actually, more of a limestone will work outside. But these threads are very different for each different house. So you've got to look at your house and look at your brickwork and look at your roof and look at all the things around, and let that inform the decisions that you're making. And what starts to happen is those decisions become much easier because they're actually influenced by something else. Does that make sense? So it suddenly became really, really easy to choose the tile. And when I was going out to lots of different looking at different showrooms and looking online and asking for samples, I knew exactly what I was looking for, because the kind of decision had been made for me when I decided that my red thread was going to be the dapple greys. So as it moved round then, we started to do the fencing around the house, and we started to pick paint for the windows. Again, the paint choice then, we looked back at the bifolds, which was the RAL 7016, and it became obvious that the paint on the windows had to marry in and complement, more or less match what was going on the bifolds. And the same as we moved around then. So this is like a little mini red thread. So if you look at this, when we had the bays made, we had this vertical detailing in the bay because that reflected what was going on somewhere else in the house. And when we then had all the fencing sorted out, we picked up the detail from the bays and carried it down to the fencing. So same colour, but also importantly, the same kind of detail. And those little bits of detail, this is lovely, isn't it? It's a piece of reclamation that we picked up in Kent when we were working down there. So these kind of details, when you do this, builder cat's just run out. When you do this, when visitors come around to your house, when people come to your house, and you've made these kind of subtle decisions, these are the things which make a scheme feel cohesive, and these are the things which make a scheme feel tied together. And these are sometimes the things as well that people don't really notice. They like how it looks and they think that works, but they don't really understand how or why. But you'll know how and why because you've followed those red threads through. So that's kind of how you do it. It also helped to inform what we were doing here on the path. So some of you might have last week seen when we were doing the treasure tingle on Thursday Treasures. You might have seen us talking about the reclamation outside. And when we were looking for something to use on the path, and obviously that was the start of the red thread, and then we'd got there. In fact, we did this bit before we did that bit, even though I'd bought those, they were stored in the garage. I went out to a brickyard and I was buying bricks for the house, and all these cobbles, all these sets were in some massive big bags, and some of them were covered with some of them were covered with bitumen and some of them were covered with paint, but it didn't matter because as I looked at them and the different dappled greys, and actually he said to me, they're a bit cheap, those ones, because they come from different streets, because the cobbles are all different, there's not just from one street, so nobody wants to buy them. But for me, because they reflected the dappled greys of the roof, they were absolutely perfect. I'd got my red thread, I'd made my decision, or it had been made for me, and I kind of ran with it and followed it, and that's how the garden has come together. So actually, my decisions have almost not been made for me, but been made so much easier. And this is the thing certainly when you're doing outside spaces, landscaping, it's so difficult to make these decisions, really hard, and you're under pressure, aren't you? And your builders are asking, your landscapers are asking, and everybody wants you to kind of make all the decisions. And how do you make them, and how do you make sure it flows? And that's one of the ways of doing it, is by having those kind of red threads. And actually, even something as small, haven't I just let you in, weirdo? How did you get out? It's like a magic cat. Even something as small as when we were doing the drainage. Oh, you see, this is what happens. Just because she's gone in, he wants to go in. He's like a little annoying little brother. Excuse me, fighting. I know he's very annoying, Missy, but okay, sorry, just a little distraction there. when we were doing the drainage, we had to decide what to put in, what stones to put in. And of course, they have to be these sort of dappled greys again, don't they? So it kind of, it flows and it picks up what's going on elsewhere. So whether it's the big decisions or whether it's the little decisions, once you've got those red threads, then it all helps. And yes, I have got shoes in the kitchen because just like everybody, I've got some time to spare and I've actually washed my shoes, which never happens, but a little bit of time on your hands. So anyway, there you go. So that's what we've talked about today. Some red threads and how they work and how to make them work for you and how it's helped me make decisions. And I suppose that is also it taps into that idea of having a hero material, so a central material, which for us here was the reef slates. So that central material, which then impacts. It sort of sits in the middle and sends out little signals to all the other decisions and all the other materials. So having that kind of hero material as well, sitting in the middle, allowing you to make decisions on everything else. So there you go. Has anybody got any questions? Thank you for joining in. Let's have a look. One sec. Oh, hi everybody. That's so obvious now you've shown us. It is obvious once you see. I didn't make up this thing of red threads. It's a Scandinavian concept, and it's an amazing one, isn't it? Because once you understand it, and once you understand how to do it, it just works, doesn't it? Right, okay, I'm going to go up and get on with a bit more work. I hope that's been a little bit of inspiration for you and guidance. What RAL reference is the graveyard bifolds? 7016. 7016. There you go, HB Interior Design. So I hope you're all keeping well. I've had a conversation this morning with one of my tenants who's actually lost somebody really close to her from this virus this week. So I'm really aware, as we're doing these lovely things and wandering around talking about interior design, that people are struggling out there, and some of you might have stuff going on. So I hope it's a little bit of a respite for you. I'm really acutely aware that while we're wittering on about interior design, things are pretty tough out there for people, aren't they? Hope it's a little bit of a respite in your day. And I'm now going to get lunch because I'm so hungry. How are you doing, Mr. Morges? Why have you got one? Why have you got? I'm going to show you this. What are you doing? What are you doing, you weirdo?
You're rubbing my leg.
Is it sore? Oh, babe. You're just hanging around because you want me to feed you now, aren't you? Right, gang, we're off.